Yes. So, on my end, spend a lot of time enabling the notification for when you have a community type 2 or 3 and you make a post or a comment and it gets muted immediately. That's done-ish. I literally have a pipeline running now, and in theory, this should be like I should have like this ready for tonight. The had a bunch of issues because I chased a bug where on HiveMind, when a post is deleted and then recreated, I thought it was not recreated in like it wouldn't create a new entry as it's supposed to be, as in like it would just edit the previous thing. It turns out that was not the case, and so that part is okay. So there is some extra unit tests for this. So that has been done, which means that we are fully done with the notifications overhaul. Can I want to look into optimizing the process though, because a lot of basically during the sync, most of the notifications are sent while we process the posts, and the issue is that then we do one big SQL query to do all the post processing, and then we do extra SQL queries to insert the notifications, and that's not very optimal. If we could insert the notifications directly into it, that would be better, so that we don't have to like exit the SQL realm. But because that query is already quite massive, we'll see if that's like too if it's too complex to be worth it in terms of like added complexity and then further development costs. And yeah. What do you mean by new community stuff? Yeah, that's been shipped, so that's done.
There already, from a UI perspective.
So I spoke about this with PigD. I think it's all integrated. That's a good question, actually. I think it is because it's been quite a few years, so it should be integrated already. I know. What's his name? Essence. Good Karma. No, Good Karma asked me about it. And so so I know they have integrated it. All the new notifications have been integrated also. And they are even like future proofed for like the change I just finished. So that part is done as well. I don't think Hive.blog supports the new communities, but like at the end of the day, they cannot support it by default because the change is like basically transparent. It just makes the post muted, so they just disappear. It's more about like.
But please update the documentation, because all documentation still assumes that Hive-1 is like type 1 community, Hive-2, blah, blah, blah. So in order to have it somewhere written, otherwise we just know that because we know that, or when we look at the code. But people still can stumble upon those old bugs with like types of communities. And let's suppose that the new Hive blog or like the new upcoming version wasn't developed with new communities in mind, then it means that such front end will just behave the same way actually, because those will be muted. It just people won't know why it's happening like right away, because they won't see that this is a different kind of community,
right? Yeah, this is why. I mean, that's why I'm doing this current change, which will add, which will basically add the
notifications.
Yeah, notifications. So like even if you're on a front end, or like I don't know, even like something like Hive Leo or something, they are going to see like, oh, this post doesn't, this community doesn't allow posting for non-members. the best case scenario would be if the front end actually said, "Oh, you cannot post because
Yeah, I
as
think it's
sees
better
the
to have
rules."
the front end do it clearly. So
Yeah,
No, okay. So it's just a matter of like changing, checking what kind of community it is and behave.
yeah, pretty much, and that's already returned in the get community endpoint, so they will know. It's really like not a big change,
they
so that's why
basically
I'm
just
not.
need to check that field.
Yeah,
Okay. So it sounds like a pretty straightforward change.
and you're right for the documentations. I'm late on that. I looked into it, but I didn't get the chance to edit everything. I'll work on this month.
Okay. Probably we'll need to update you'll want to update the, we're adding, I guess you're done, right? That was all. I
Yeah,
think that
sorry.
was your, yeah. So we've been doing a lot of work on the documentation side lately, especially the Swagger docs. So we'll want to update the Swagger docs, I guess, for that too, as we.
Is the Swagger doc automated or is it
Yeah,
manually made?
yeah, it's the way it works is there's an open API spec file, and we just so that we generate everything from that. So you have to define that file, but then it generates the Swagger from that, and it's actually in some of the cases that's actually how the actual calls get generated too. So basically, the documentation is sort of required as part of the process of developing or modifying a new API call. So if you change a parameter in an API call, you pretty much got to change the docs too.
Okay, but so all the current APIs are they done, or do I need to step into it for the community APIs?
I think they're for the most part done, but HiveMind is the one place I need to double check on.
Okay.
Everything else I know for sure, but HiveMind that's all pretty new, and I'd want to double check the state of that to be sure it's done. But I haven't actually looked at it yet, so I'm going to deploy a new stack a little bit, and I'll see what's there.
Okay.
So along related lines, so I've been doing a lot of testing of the new API node stack lately. So we did tag an RC1. I called it RC1, even though we knew that it wasn't going to be the release candidate. It just was more convenient to use that name than to make up some other name for it. But it's actually pretty close. I think we've got a few more API calls we plan on introducing before the final release. But I hope actually they're all done in the coming week. But there might be. One is being worked on by an outside team, so I don't know when that one's going to be done. But everything else I know on our side we should have done this week, as far as API calls go. So let's see. We did deploy the new RC1 stack, and it's running on api.zenCAD.com if anybody wants to do some testing. The one thing that's missing right now that I think is kind of important is with the new HiveSense code, which is for semantic search. You basically, the way you make the first call, and it gives you it gives you IDs for all the posts that match the search. So we needed to add in a new call to basically look up posts from those IDs. The reason we did all this because we ran into paging problems when you wanted to page through the search. It's just too slow to do it that way. So basically, what we do is we get 1,000. When somebody does a search call with the semantic search, they get 1,000 post IDs back, and they can just fetch like the first 10 or 20. They can just do it that way on the paging. And actually, they don't even have to fetch the first 10 because we do provide those right away. But if they want to page beyond that, they'll have to make this new call to get the additional posts that match the search results. So once that's in place, I want to encourage all the apps that are out there to incorporate the semantic search feature. The full text search is already there, and that's working. We're testing that with Denser right now. Let's see what else. On the stack side, another thing I'm testing right now is I'm testing running a stack in non-forking mode just to compare performance. This is something I've been planning to do for ages, and I'm finally just getting around to it. So I'm going to test the performance of a forking version of the stack versus a non-forking version of the stack. So basically, a non-forking version of the stack, it's working on blocks that are already irreversible. So that's the state reported by those apps is can't change. Basically, it can only advance from that point. There may be some performance advantages. I think there's going to be, there's certainly some performance advantage, but I don't know how much. So that's the real question, is to see if the performance advantage is significant or not. Another thing I did notice recently while doing some performance testing was that over time, as a half stack running for a long time was starting to slow down, and it turned out some tables need to be vacuumed. So we're going to probably add some code to vacuum those tables periodically. I mean, they were getting vacuumed normally, but they need a full vacuum in this case, not just a normal vacuum. And full vacuum basically rewrites the table to a different location and basically shrinks it in the process. Let's see. On the Hive side, Hive-D side, we're continuing work to store the account data on disk instead of in memory, basically using another RocksDB database. This is mostly a scaling issue more than anything else. Right now, there's no real performance problem associated with this, but if we say we had 10 million or 100 million accounts, we'd start to probably run into problems storing all that memory. So this should solve some of those long-term problems. We'll see if there's any. I mean, obviously it'll reduce memory now too, but our memory footprint now is pretty reasonable for the state file. I think I want to say around 6 gigabytes. Let's see. We also made some changes to improve stability of the continuous integration test for Hive-D. That's been a long-standing problem. Is just we've had these intermittent fails of the tests. We even just rerun them and they pass. So we've apparently got rid of most of those problems. The ones that are remaining, we think, are related to overloading on the servers right now. One thing I did do already was I added 2 more servers to our continuous integration test servers. So that should spread the load at least out in the cases where it's just a bunch of jobs running at once. I know the case that really kicks things the hardest is when I tag new versions of all the apps. Basically, then it's like we have 7 or 8 repos all running tests at once. And that obviously creates quite a bit of load. Let's see what else. The other big thing I think is going on from a dev perspective is we're continuing work with creating documentation for all the apps with Swagger documentation. I just mentioned already. So most recently, we added Swagger docs for Hive-D itself. So the APIs for that are now in there, and you'll be able to see that in the new api.syncad.com. You'll be able to see the specs, the Swaggers there. I don't know if it's up yet, but it will be very shortly if not. Let's see. And along the same lines, so those Swagger docs are also how we generate API bindings for Wax. In other words, in order for Wax to make a call, it has to have a binding to an API. And all that's generated from the same file that's used to generate the Swagger docs. So that's that same open API document that gets created. And so that we've had that for TypeScript. We added it for Python, and we're basically now generating API bindings for Python as well. So there's 2 versions of Wax, the TypeScript version and the Python version. So at this point, the Python versions of Wax is in pretty good shape, I would say. Now that it can, essentially make all the API calls. Let's see what else. Another thing that's going on in Hive-D is we've always had this issue where sometimes some of the API calls, and especially broadcast, the error results that get back can be kind of hard to understand. They're basically text that needs to be regex processed in order to understand the nature of the error. So we've been replacing those with assertions with error codes, and basically teaching Wax to understand those messages as well. So it should lower the load and speed up processing when we get errors and things like that. But mostly it's just a development aid. It'll simplify writing code that handles errors. So that's about it. I guess one other thing that's in Hive-D is probably not interesting to most people, but we've changed the way that some of the testing's done internally, so it should speed up the test somewhat, which is, right now it's still about 40 minutes for a full test of Hive-D, which is kind of long. On Half side, one of the things we've been working on for a bit, it's still going on, but making pretty good progress, it seems, is on what we call data pruning. So this is running a Half node where it doesn't keep the entire blockchain of data over time. So the database is basically being pruned down. So you'd be able to run like a much smaller version of half. I think the most now when this is useful and when it's not. I would say it's not particularly useful in the case where you're running half on as an app because you need all those tables to to have all that history. But if you're running something like HiveMind, if you're running an app that only uses its own tables and doesn't use the tables that the base half tables, then now you can run a much more lightweight version of that. So for instance, in the case of HiveMind, you could run a right now, you're probably it's probably around 300 gigabytes uncompressed of HiveMind and probably half that or less compressed. So you could run quite a small HiveMind this way. So that should be quite interesting when it open it up. Um, I think the potential use case that probably fits best is if we're trying to scale a lot and we need to scale up more of some apps than others. We could scale up HiveMind in particular comes to mind again. We could scale up several HiveMinds on machines now to handle API calls without taking up a lot of disk space.
I think that one of the cool use cases is the small applications, like I don't know, world mapping, I guess, and
Yes.
all similar that just make use of some custom JSON, like one of my demo apps that I wanted to like
The
deploy.
NFT tracker we just made, same another one.
Yeah, so anything that like just you need to like look in the blockchain and store in your own database. You don't need like anything else. So
Yeah, so these are now getting
500 gigabytes of block load.
exactly. Yeah, it should be, I think, very important for those type of apps. Let's see. Another thing that was added was market history support. History API support is done to Hafa. That means those calls can now be shifted from putting pressure on Hive-D to just to half. So once again, anytime we can get API calls off Hive-D, that's good. It lowers the pressure on Hive-Ds, which means we can process more stuff. I don't think this is necessarily a problem at this moment, but if we had people hitting a lot of history calls for API, it could matter. Let's see. We did introduce our first REST calls to HiveMind, the new API calls. Just one call basically right now, I think, which is the one to allow you to exclude operations that are muted from from basically a account history call. Let's see what else. I guess Howell already talked about the changes he made. He also, I don't know if you mentioned it, but you also removed the notifications table, one of the notification tables from HiveMind 2. But I don't know exactly. I haven't done any. I don't know that we'll see any performance changes, honestly, but it'd be interesting to see.
I don't expect performance change that much, but maybe if I mean, a couple of 100 megabytes to a gig will be shaved off, I guess.
Okay.
So like, it's really not that big of a deal, but like every bit counts.
Yeah, sure. There's no point in wasting spin. Speaking of which, so I've also been testing the stack with a bunch of several new apps. So we did create an NFT tracker app that's been developed in cooperation with the Zing team. So they've been basically feeding specs to one of our guys for that app, and I've included that as a standard app in the stack now. I don't really know a whole lot about it, to be honest, but it's quite lightweight. I can tell you that it's very, very small. Let's see. And along the same lines, I've also been testing with Madiari's Half SQL app. Now, this is quite a large app. It does add a substantial size to the database. I think with compression, about 500 gigabytes more to the database size, which isn't terribly bad, I guess. So I haven't deployed that version on api.simcad.com. So that means you'll be able to use api.simcad.com to do Half SQL calls as well.
Can we like separate our like stable apps?
It is. So we do that naturally. So basically, if it's an apps, I consider it like a sort of standard app that you probably want to run. If any app that's not yet stable, I usually run it. You have to add it on as a separate app.
Yeah, so like Debian or Ubuntu repositories have like those country repositories. So it seems like a natural place.
Yeah, I mean that's just what,
Country
like I said,
types.
I'm defining it just by using the word apps. So we can for every service we can tie multiple service names to it. So the apps, it basically lists all the apps that we consider, you should probably be running if you're running half API node, and the other one's going to be optional ones. So my plan right now is just, I think I've tagged all the ones that I plan to be apps in this release. So HalfSQL will be an add-on. The other thing we're testing, which will be an add-on, is the UIs. So we're going to add the option. We're going to add services for both Denser and for the Block Explorer. So basically, the idea is, hopefully, I hope at least the Block Explorer, most of the API nodes will then be running. So we should have a lot of redundancy in our Block Explorers that way. Let's see what else. We made some improvements to Balance Tracker, fixed some bugs there in terms of some of the data that was returned. Let's see. Wax has been a lot of optimizations. I mentioned a while back that we'd speeded up processing of transactions in Wax, but we made some further speed ups. I'd say, given the numbers I've given, I'd say it doubled the speed again. So we're about up to 12 times faster than it was originally. We're also, as I mentioned, supporting the processing of errors from the API calls in Wax, and basically doing that with exceptions. So when you make an API call, for instance, the idea is that it'll throw an exception now that you can then catch at whatever level. It'll throw basically an object, a TypeScript object, for example. That's work still going on. I think it's probably going to take, I'm going to guess, another month or two to get it all worked out. But we've made some. We're basically like at a first stage finish completion state. So it kind of works right now, but it's not what we want yet, basically. But anyways, long term, that should make coding a bit easier to handle error processing. Let's see what else. We're continuing to work on the WorkerBee app, which is sort of an app for directly processing blockchain data. You could think sort of for making bots and other types of reactive apps that react to data as it's in like a streaming manner. And we've been using that voting bot application as an example app a lot of times to do the testing. We're also creating a bunch of basically short recipes for how to do things in Hive using snippets, code snippets. So that should also be very helpful, I think, to new devs. In fact, I'd say that's kind of, if you think about what's been done, a lot of what we're doing lately is really focused on making it easier for devs to develop, from the documentation perspective, from the interactive docs, from the Swagger, from the library work that we've been doing in Wax and WorkerBee, and then the snippets and things like that. It should make it much simpler for someone who's just getting going to do Hive development, and also to do it in a way that's sustainable in the long run, maintainable code, that kind of thing. Other things we've been working on, we've just about finished everything with Hive Sense, which is the semantic search. As I mentioned, we got one last feature, and then we're going to go into another round where we just basically do testing of all the searching to see that we've optimized it, because there's a lot of different, when you're doing semantic search, there's a lot of variables you can play with to see how to tune the results you get from your search. And that, it's kind of a painful step because there's no real solid metric for it, but we're basically just going to have to kind of wing it to see until we're comfortable that all the results are good. Let's see what else. We've also continued to do work on Clive, which is the command line tool, and also this has a GUI front end to it too. We did release a new version that I think covers a lot of features we've been hoping for a long time. So I think it's really this stage that anybody's looking for a command line wallet, or a TUI wallet, as we call it, terminal wallet, will find it's pretty useful at this point. I think it's pretty decent. Speeded up a lot of the slowdowns and added a lot of the features we've been waiting on. There's still got a decent list of stuff that we plan on doing, but it's in pretty good shape. And finally, we're continuing to work on Denser. made some performance improvements recently. Still not as fast as I'd like to see it, but it's definitely getting better. Um, let's see. And I guess there was also a recent fix to the health checker that it uses as well. So that's about all I can think of off the top of my head. So I guess who would like to go next?
I'm happy to give some updates.
Okay, go for it.
All right, thank you. So just regarding the point you mentioned about the onboarding new developers, I mean, I can testify how it has become a much easier journey. I mean, especially with Swagger, this documentation is helping so much. I mean, today we're just onboarding a couple of developers, and I mean, you just give them Swagger and say, go play around. I mean, it could be really as a life-changing thing, because you can find the documentation, you can find the APIs. And even if we had, like, you know, developers.hive.io, I mean, it's completely different. So yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with how much far we've come. So props on that. Okay, so in terms of our updates, we've added recently to the Block Explorer UI a new governance health check on user profiles. So now you can actually find out what is the status from a governance perspective for every account. Is their vote expired? Is it functional? When does it expire? Is it expiring soon, within 3 months or not? So you get like a certain, somewhat of a badge. It's really a card that shows the status on the user profile. Similarly, we also have a proposal voted card on the user profile, which allows you to check how many proposals the user voted, and clicking on it will actually lead you to see the proposals page that we added recently as well, filtered by this user. We've done a revamp of the wallet card on the user profile. It's so much different now, hopefully for the better. It looks very different. It looks more graphically appealing, and so better in a structured manner. We have a tabbed view now, actually, for the card. So we maintained the old view that we had for the user profile. We made it a setting so that by default, you get a tabbed view that looks much nicer, in my opinion. But you can also switch back to the old view if you prefer that one. We now have a new settings screen. Like I mentioned, I mean, one of the settings would be switching to the different card view. We're working on a lot more settings available as part of the Block Explorer experience, like switching between vests and HP by default, voting bar display, the layout, the tabbed view, and many more things coming up in the settings. We've done a lot of fixes and enhancements to the proposals page. So this includes, for example, having a new chart under the proposal page that shows proposals, funding, how far they're funded, the percentages, whatnot. There was an issue with the account authorities due to the changes in the API, so that was fixed. We've done an update to the balance history pagination, so there was an issue there, and we are updating the UI to reflect also the API changes. So the API was actually switched backwards to improve performance. We have a new chart under the voters history dialog. So if you go to the voters history, you would actually see a new cool chart that shows you historically how the votes have progressed for this particular witness, who voted next, how many people voted, how much it gained in support over time. You can filter and all of the default stuff. We have our new server, new development half node API is running. It's dev hive API.activate.io. So just like the Hive API, but this is the dev version. It's not currently running the latest dev version, but because my developer is doing some tests there on his task. But yeah, it will hopefully be updated frequently to contain the latest developed branch. I think this will help us a lot, especially with any API that requires testing on the full blockchain data.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely going to be useful, because it's always surprising when you run a full replay how you find things that don't show up anywhere else.
100%. So we have the account proxies API is now ready, so you can actually query to get who is proxying to this particular account. It's already on Syncad. We are building a UI. This should be a new card also available under the user profile account. Incoming, outgoing API also, this is ready. I think Michael finalized it. So also we'll be updating the UI so that you can filter operations by incoming, outgoing. I really think this is a very important new filtering concept, because it opens up a lot of possibilities for more filtering and maybe more analysis. I guess really this is basically it from our side.
Yeah,
If you have any questions.
filtering incoming, outgoing, it will change a lot for the better. So probably it will require some redesigns, because it
absolutely
improves a lot.
Okay, if anyone else want to pick up.
Okay, I guess it's a short meeting today.
Yeah. So, are we hosting the next one on the beginning of October? Probably you would want to have it, because you're not coming.
I'm not here, sadly, but you guys can do it basically. I know it's
probably.
It's one ring of yours.
Probably that's. I talked with Bartek, and it's also probably that's the different audience and the Hive has done on the Corda meeting, so we can have this one on the 6th, and Corda panel also, but I don't know, as a workshop or something. Maybe.
Yeah, last
not
year
necessarily,
was
because
pretty good.
It would be boring for 90%.
Fair enough. Yeah, because it's the 10th, right? It's the 10th to the 17th.
15th to 19th, but I'm leaving earlier, so around the time.
Yeah, and then the next Monday would be the 6th, so it's kind of pointless. Either we could host it here and then skip it. I'm okay either way.
I'm fine as well. Unfortunately, also I cannot go to HiveFest because of my university schedule. But if you want to do online, fine. I mean,
yeah. So let's do just regular, because if two of you won't be able to get the HiveFest.
Okay.
But also, I guess we will be closing to the release. So
yeah, right.
That's the thing I wanted to mention, actually, that I forgot. So I am in the process of, like I said, I'm starting to test the stack. My goal is to have it to a releasable state by the end of this month, and maybe even hopefully release it at the end of this month.
Nice.
And so as part of that, we were talking earlier today, I think we'll also schedule the hard fork for 2 months after that. So roughly whenever we release the API, the next API version of the stack, it'll have a new version of HiveD with the hard fork date set. So basically, in other words, the hard fork would happen about 2 months after that. So that'll give us time to test and find any problems with the API stack, and then, assuming no problems, we'll just have the fork will take place 2 months later. So that's all I had to mention. I forgot to mention.
Okay. Then I guess that's it for this meeting. See you next month.
Yep. See you guys.
All right. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.